Hey, this is Skylar Hamilton with Freedom or Bust. First, what is a natural right? A fundamental natural right to be equal to every person and to be equal in value in relation to every other person must be a right which everyone can simultaneously claim and exercise without forcing anyone else to cater to their own needs, desires, and purposes. The source of those rights is humanity itself. It is not a gift from one man to another. It is not a gift from a class of men to another. It is not like an item of clothing that one can take off and give away. It is unalienable. You are incapable of alienating your rights from your humanity. Thus, everyone's rights are bound by the equal rights of others. How those rights relate to other people is known as a duty. Now, every fundamental natural right has a corresponding fundamental natural duty. And a fundamental natural duty is a duty one owes everyone else simultaneously because no one else owes them a service towards their own goals, desires, and purposes. Now, it is as impossible to separate rights from duties as it is to separate those fundamental, unalienable rights from humanity itself. They are interconnected, two sides of the same coin. So I have a right to life, but I have a duty to everyone else to respect their right to life. And they have a duty towards me to respect my own right to life. I have a right to travel, but with that comes the duty not to infringe on anyone else's ability to do so. I have a right to pursue happiness in whichever way I desire, so long as it does not infringe on anyone else's ability to do so. And it is interesting to note that Thomas Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, not only outlined the three rights, namely life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which every other right is connected to, but he also did it in such a way that it spans all of time as well. Now, in that very same document, Jefferson outlines the role, the proper role of government in relation to these rights. And that is to merely secure and protect them. In other words, we enter society not to be granted rights, we already have them in a state of nature, but to be better secure in our exercise of those rights. And it should be noted that the primary way to secure and protect rights is by enforcing the natural duties that reside in every other person in relation to you, and enforce the duties that you owe to other people. Now, it should be noted that with this understanding of the correct definition of fundamental rights and fundamental duties, and then an understanding of government's relation to them, that no one has a fundamental right to a government involving other people. No one has a right to government except for that of self-government. That is, government of one, by one, and for one. No one even has a right to society itself. And this understanding is enshrined in the Constitution. One example. In the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, it states, in part, that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. Notice, it does not say Congress shall grant or give the freedom of speech to its citizens. They understood that the freedom of speech pre-existed them and any government, that it existed by virtue of one's humanity. It was a gift from God. Now, some may say, but wait a second. there are rights guaranteed in the Bill of Rights that involve other people. So this cannot be the correct understanding. And they may name due process, trial by jury, and even a trial itself assumes the service of a judge. That assumes other people, right? So it can't be a fundamental right. And that part is true. That's why it is key to understand the difference between a natural fundamental right and a civil right, or rather, a civil privilege. You see, there are such things as acquired rights, all with corresponding duties as well. And there are particularly two ways to do this. A, by civil compact. B, by contract. This video will only pertain to the first. The Noah Webster 1828 dictionary defines right as a just claim. Now, we've already talked about natural rights, where that claim comes by virtue of humanity. Civil rights are a branch of that, and it comes by virtue of humanity extended in a civil society. You see, man entered society to begin with to better exercise his rights, and therefore we come up with these privileges to allow for that to occur. If not this, why enter society in the first place? Now, it is crucial to understand we're not talking about any sort of collective right, as if one exists, outside of the individual right. Therefore, a civil right, to be valid, must be based on a natural right. So, for example, due process or trial by jury. See, the reason that's valid is that we all have an unalienable fundamental right to legal fairness. Therefore, we can exercise that right as a society through what we call due process to better exercise that right and enforce the duties associated with everyone else. It's a good thing. That's why we came together as a society, was to find these ways, these privileges associated with that society, to be better secure and to better exercise those rights. Can you imagine in a state of nature trying to exercise your right to legal fairness without the guarantee to due process or a trial by jury? Now, every civil right or privilege comes with its associated duties. So, if you want the right to trial by jury, you should probably be willing to, if not be on a jury yourself, pay for the jury's time. You see, but everyone benefits. It's a general benefit for every person in that society. It is not this class against that class, or this interest group against that interest group. It is the general welfare, not the particular welfare of some at the expense of others. So can we as a society create, by civil compact, a civil right to health insurance or any other service paid for by someone else? Well, ask yourself, do I, in a state of nature, have a right to the service of someone else? And of course, the answer is no. And therefore, you cannot create legitimate civil rights based on a collective right that doesn't exist. I could think of no better way to sum up this message than to use the words of Thomas Paine as found in The Rights of Man. Thomas Paine said this: "Man did not enter into society to become worse than he was before, nor to have fewer rights than he had before, but to have those rights better secured. His natural rights are the foundation of all his civil rights. Natural rights are those which appertain to man in the right of his existence. Civil rights are those which appertain to man in right of his being a member of society. Every civil right has for its foundation some natural right pre-existing in the individual, but to the enjoyment of which his individual power is not, in all cases, sufficiently competent.